Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a fascinating, highly controversial story. We're going to explore exactly how Infowars and its founder, Alex Jones, utilized their platforms to build an absolutely massive media empire. And they did this specifically by advocating for New World Order conspiracy theories and consistently challenging mainstream narratives. But we're also going to look at how that massive empire completely unraveled. It's a wild story of alternative media, serious monetization, and unprecedented legal consequences. Let's get into it.
To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to follow a clear timeline. We'll look at the rise of their alternative narrative, the conspiracy business model they used, the Sandy Hook breaking point, the digital fallout, and finally, a seriously surreal conclusion involving the Onion.
Starting with Part 1, Rise of the Alternative Narrative, from public access to millions of views.
So Infowars actually started way back in 1999 as just a local public access TV show in Austin, Texas. Over nearly 2 decades, they slowly and methodically built up a fiercely dedicated audience, eventually pulling in an estimated $20 million in annual revenue by 2014. But then, the timeline just aggressively compresses. We see a coordinated deplatforming in 2018, bankruptcy by 2022, and a frantic liquidation battle stretching all the way into 2026. Basically, a slow 20-year build followed by a lightning-fast collapse.
Now, the foundation of that 2-decade build is absolutely crucial here. Infowars really anchored its core content on overarching theories like the New World Order. Basically, this is a conspiracy theory hypothesizing that a secretive, totalitarian world government is slowly emerging to take control. By using YouTube, syndicated radio, and their own websites, Alex Jones advocated heavily for these theories, and in doing so, he cultivated an audience that grew highly distrustful of mainstream institutions, government narratives, and traditional media. That deep distrust? That became the absolute bedrock for everything that happened next.
Which brings us to Part 2, the conspiracy business model, or how to monetize distrust.
You see, it's one thing to have an alternative audience. It's another to build a highly profitable business out of it. Infowars relied on a few very specific, recurring content strategies. As the source documents outline, they consistently push those New World Order theories. They questioned the official narratives around 9/11 and domestic terror attacks. They promoted claims like Pizzagate and election fraud, and they frequently framed mass shootings as government-staged false flag operations. They even went so far as to claim the government controls the weather and health care. By leaning into these unverified claims, Infowars attracted millions of viewers who felt totally alienated by traditional media. They essentially built an entirely separate information ecosystem.
And wow, it is honestly staggering how lucrative capturing that specific audience really was. In 2014 alone, Alex Jones claimed Infowars was pulling in an estimated $20 million in revenue. $20 million.
Let's move to Part 3, Selling Natural Cures and the Echo Chamber Economy.
This brings up a massive question. Major corporate advertisers were constantly pulling their ads from Infowars content, right? So how were they making all that money? Well, they monetized their audience's distrust of mainstream medicine by selling totally unregulated dietary supplements. Infowars would make major claims, pitching things like super male vitality to increase testosterone or natural antivirals that they claimed could treat COVID-19. But if you compare that to medical realities, like from Medline Plus, health authorities clearly warn that herbal remedies are just not tested like actual medicines. And crucially, natural absolutely does not mean safe. Despite facing heavy FDA scrutiny, selling these alternative products drove massive revenue.
And Alex Jones didn't just sell these supplements like a late-night infomercial. He actually fused his business model directly with his ideology. Listen to this quote. "The enemy wants to cut off our funding to destroy us. If you don't fund us, we'll be shut down." Whenever traditional platforms push back, he framed buying his merchandise as a literal fight against political enemies. Buying a vitamin wasn't just about your health, it was framed as funding the resistance. It was a masterclass in weaponizing consumer identity.
That brings us to Part 4, the Sandy Hook breaking point, when conspiracies have real consequences.
This is where the aggressive pursuit of online engagement collided in a really devastating way with a real-world tragedy. In December 2012, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting happened in Newtown, Connecticut. 20 young children and 6 educators were murdered. It was an incredibly dark day, and the entire nation, including the president, mourned that incomprehensible loss. But Infowars took a radically different path.
Source documents show that Alex Jones repeatedly used his platform to call the Sandy Hook massacre a completely fake hoax. He claimed it was all staged by crisis actors to push gun control. And because of his massive reach, these claims spread like wildfire. This led to severe, real-world harassment, horrific threats, and compounded trauma for the grieving parents, carried out by people who truly believed the Infowars narrative.
But broadcasting those kinds of claims has major consequences. The families eventually fought back in court with massive defamation lawsuits. Ultimately, a judge and jurors ordered Alex Jones to pay nearly $1.5 billion, yes, billion with a B, in damages to the victims' families. That was a catastrophic financial blow that the Infowars empire simply could not survive.
Let's look at Part 5, Deplatforming and the Fallout, the Digital Exile.
Interestingly, even before those billion-dollar judgments hit, the digital landscape was already turning sharply against Infowars. Researchers analyzing digital attention traces on places like Reddit and Google Search found something really fascinating. Removing a norm-violating influencer from major networks severely restricts their overall reach. When an influencer relies on everyday users just stumbling across their content in a mainstream feed, losing that mainstream access totally chokes out their growth.
And that's exactly what played out here. In late 2018, a massive deplatforming wave hit Infowars like dominoes. In July, Facebook suspends Jones. In August, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify ban the content. By September, Twitter issues a permanent ban and Apple yanks the app. Later in 2020, Google Play banned the app too over those COVID-19 claims. Tech giants effectively evicted Infowars from the mainstream internet for repeatedly violating hate speech and harassment policies, exiling them to the very fringes of the web.
Finally, Part 6, The Onion Takes Over, a truly satirical conclusion.
This brings us to the final, incredibly surreal chapter. From the courtroom straight to the bankruptcy auction block. Crushed by the billion-dollar judgments, Infowars' parent company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2022. Fast forward to 2024, and a judge ordered the full liquidation of assets to help pay the Sandy Hook families. Literally everything was auctioned off. The intellectual property, the website, the social media accounts, even the physical studio cameras. And then, in a totally stunning twist, the Sandy Hook families agreed to back a bid by the parent company of the famous satirical news organization, The Onion.
The Onion immediately made their plans clear. They were going to turn the toxic platform into a comedy site, leaning into biting satire to essentially dismantle the Infowars legacy. They even dropped a statement from their fictional CEO jokingly promising to democratize psychological torture and welcome ideas from the very stupidest among us. The goal was obvious: take a site famous for alternative facts and completely overwrite it with absurd comedy.
But Alex Jones remained completely defiant. Broadcasting on alternative channels, he fought the acquisition tooth and nail. He said, "I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be here until they come in there and turn the lights off. I'm going to say, where's your court order?" He claimed the auction was totally rigged, which actually sparked a complex legal review with judges stepping in to examine the mechanics of the chaotic sale.
And that brings us to where we are today. As the legal battles over the auction play out and the lights potentially go out on Infowars for good, it leaves us with a really profound question. If an empire built on challenging the truth can ultimately be brought down by the real-world consequences of a billion-dollar lie, what exactly happens to the massive, highly mobilized audience left behind in that echo chamber? Where do they go next? It's a question we'll definitely be watching unfold. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.